Hi! In this video, we'll introduce two HTML attributes that help us identify and classify elements in an HTML document: ID and class. ID represents a unique identifier for the HTML element it is applied to. In other words, it's a way for us to give a unique tag or name to that element in the page. It is important to stress that the ID must be unique in the page. No two HTML elements in an HTML document should have the same ID. Its value is totally up to you. You use it to mark an element with a unique name. Class represents, like the name implies, a classifier. While an HTML element represents a type, like a button, div, span, paragraph, the class can be used to represent a subtype: rounded button, bordered div, one-column span. Its semantic is generally up to the developer, but there is one more important difference that sets it apart from an ID. A class doesn't need to be unique in the document and can be assigned to more than one element. As we'll see later, class is heavily used with CSS, since it gives us a way to mark an element for styling. It's something that we can do also with the ID attribute, but the ID can only target one single element in the page, so it doesn't have any potential for reuse, whereas a class name can be used to style different parts of the document with a single CSS declaration block. The class attribute can contain one or more words, separated by space, each one of them representing a class name, as in the following example. So let me give you an example of how classes and IDs can be used in a document, just to clear things up. So let's suppose that we have a document like this, and we have, for example, two different tables in this document. We have our first table with, let's just create a table row with a table data, a couple of columns. Table row. And let's close our first table. Now, because I'm lazy, I will create another table copying this one. And everything is contained in a section. Can be a section, can be a div, depending what is the semantic of this container. Okay, now, for example, we could use ID to target this section and say this section is for example a user detail panel. We have only one user detail panel in this page, and so we give it an ID. The ID identifies uniquely this section within the page. But what about these tables? For example, we can decide that we want to represent the first table using striping in the rows. So we want to have alternate rows. The first one white, the second one gray, the third one white, the fourth one gray, and so on. And we want this feature also on the second table. But we want the first table to be bordered, but not the second one. So how can we do that? Well, we can use classes to indicate these semantics first, and then to have hooks for styling later. So this is an example of how you can do that. You can say, okay, this table will be bordered. You can make up this name as you want. You can be explicit. You can define as a class name that is specific to a table element. So I'm using table bordered, or you can have only bordered if you want to use this class name also for other type of elements. And this table will also be striped. So remember, a class attribute can contain one or more words. Each one defines a class name. The second table, for example, will be only striped but not bordered. So doing so, you can immediately see that you can reuse a class name over and over on different types of element. This gives you a way to target more than one entity in an HTML document. So if you define a style associated to this table striped name, this style will be applied to this entity and also to this entity, because both of them have the class name table striped. Whereas if you use ID, like in this case, and you associate a styling, a CSS styling to this name, it will only be used in one single element within the entire page, because the ID is unique in the page and it cannot be reused across the page. In the next videos, we'll see how we can use IDs and classes as hooks for styling.